Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit is Abby here, back again with Mob Psycho 100 Season 2, and we're on episode 4, and in the last episode, and sort of actually since the first episode, I kind of like the way they're going with Mob sort of, and his sort of views on things. It's something completely different from what we had in Season 1, where we're actually getting a look at how Mob's like sort of psychology on the world and how he sees things. Which is kind of like an interesting sort of perspective to have, because it's something that we obviously haven't had with Mob. We didn't have it in Season 1. But it seems very prominent in this season so far, and it's cool, it's great, it's nice to see. Because Mob lives in a different world than the other characters, really, in a way. Of course, obviously, he inhabits the same world, but he also has he merges with the spirit world in his own world, you know? So he has these sort of like two perspectives, and he can see how humans generally will treat the likes of spirits and stuff, and sort of put spirits below them on terms of the scale of like, you know, the priorities and stuff like that. Humans tend to see them as sort of like these freaky fucking beings and whatnot, whereas in the last episode we had a family of spirits that were just wanting to be left in peace, and they weren't even that. The likes of the dad wasn't even capable of doing anything evil, even though, you know, Dimple and like urged him on to be that way inclined. And that's another thing as well. It's like it's not just Mob that we're seeing this sort of side of, but also Dimple, who's changed a lot as well. You know, like I feel like he's starting to really like care for Mob as well. So, you know, it's nice to see these characters sort of changing and growing and evolving, you know, which it again, it's like this is the reason when I started doing the first season of Mob Psycho, I a lot of the comparisons came up with One Punch Man, and I know that it wasn't like, you know, it's not really fair, because One Punch Man isn't dealing with the same stuff, and it's a different kind of show. It's just a comedy show, whereas Mob was all, you know, that has underlying messages and things a lot of the time that take priority in Mob that don't in One Punch Man and whatnot. But I knew that, you know, I would prefer Mob Psycho because of those underlying messages and what it was, where the priorities lie in this show compared to One Punch Man. You know, and this just continuously confirms it in season 2. So yeah, I mean, I'm liking to see where they if they continue on with this. I feel like they will, because I don't think it's you know, you can't exactly push it aside. I mean, I think the last thing of episode 3 was Mob basically like asking the question of like, if I was to use like my power for, you know, to sort of hurt others or whatever, would anyone be there to stop me? Now, of course, we know that Mob wouldn't do that to the innocent, but I think it's more, you know, if he's allowed to do it to spirits, then it's sort of conflicting in his mind of whether he can do it to humans who deserve it over spirits who don't. So it's going to be interesting. And he's also at 67%, I believe, as well. So yeah, we'll see when he eventually gets to 100. Like, what's going to be the change, I feel like, with that? Because I feel like, I said at the end of last episode that I feel like his progression on the percentage is taking longer than it did in season 1, which makes me believe that he sort of he has more access to his emotions, and he lets a bit more out, you know, gradually, whereas in season 1 he couldn't at all, and that's why it all came out at 100%. So it's going to be interesting to see if he gets to 100%, if there's any like slight changes or anything, but yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm rambling on, so we're going to get in episode 4 and see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, episode 4. Fuck. This show is getting, like, so much darker, man. Like, I thought, like, that was the case, like, last episode, and then the episode before that. I feel like this, like, season 2 is just a different, like, just a completely different feeling from the first one. Like, they've gone, like, just, like, a completely different direction with it, and, I'm liking it so far. It's crazy. Okay, so I think what we'll probably do then, we'll start off with because we're getting more into, it's a way of sort of of providing exposition for how the whole psychic thing actually works and how your power actually comes around, and it is emotions across the board for everybody, and that's how it works. So obviously he's talking about well, Megami is, he's talking about how those with that live lives in suffering and everything like that, they can harbor like sort of more power because their emotions are stronger than those who are generally happy. Because if you're happy, you're content. If you're unhappy, generally you're it's a stronger sort of emotion to feel. Happiness is really like, most people are sort of happy with content, and as opposed to being like overjoyed, whereas sadness and like anger and stuff like that tend to be more like volatile and stuff like that, which to me probably makes sense as the reason as to why I don't think there will ever be a case where Mob like goes 100% and because of the emotion being happy, because that was one of the things that they talked about in season 1 when I watched it, was like, I wonder if there would ever be a case where Mob is so happy that it would like, that's what the emotion would be when it came out 100%. I don't think that would ever be the case because of the fact that it's not a strong enough sort of emotion to get to that point, I should say. So yeah, it makes sense as well then why obviously Megami is so strong. I feel like probably with the it seems like, I'm not sure if it's sort of, because they were like going into Megami's background, and he basically said that, like, because he needed money and whatnot, that like because his mother was deathly ill, that if that's the point where he started being a bad dude or not. But I didn't particularly confirm it. I feel like it could have been the case before then, and he was just, it was a case of like power and whatnot. It also makes me wonder if that is the reason, like, those who are stressed more, again, like, goes hand in hand with the suffering thing, like being able to harbour all that power that comes with that sort of being stressed and everything like that. It makes me wonder that, like, not only if he enjoyed it, but also because if he continuously put himself in situations where he would murder people with his fucking power, to put himself in that situation to like get more power, and it's crazy. And he has this whole thing, like, they're within they're both within Minori right now. Fucking poor girl, man. I mean, I hope she's gonna be alright after this, because I mean, her dad's dead. Is this the first death that we've had in this show? I feel like it is. I feel like it is. I'm trying to go back through and I'm trying to remember, but I don't think there was ever a case where where somebody has actually died. I remember, like, in episode 2 of this season, that I thought that the guy in the raincoat died, but then it turned out he didn't. I don't know then. Fuck knows. Anyway, so yeah, so that whole thing in the opening with Dimple, that's what that was. It was sort of like a little tease of what was coming. Although it is a bit weird, because the way that it looked was interesting. Like, hold on, I'm just getting it up now just to make sure. Because it looked like Dimple from now, like in the present. What should we do with them, Dimple? Yeah, that's what he's asking. And then he says, probably just another fake. What does that mean? Get him to scram? Or maybe that's literally just before he went up against he went up against Megami, and then Megami like almost devoured him. I think that's what that was, right? Yeah, I was just wondering, because it's like Dimple looked like he did now, instead of like when he was like in his buff form and whatnot. So I got a bit confused there. But yeah, that's what that was. It was just a teaser for what was coming. And yeah, right. So yeah, obviously they got the rich client to contact them, Asagiri, who is now dead. Fucking hell. And loads of other fucking psychics, like a fucking shit ton. Fucking Shinra was there with. He did mention in episode 2 the Rising Sun fucking spiritual conglomerate. I know it's not that, but it's something like that, isn't it? And yeah, so that's the sort of organization that he's a part of, and Jodo seemingly is the sort of head of that order, I guess. Yeah, and I got completely. I was a fool. I was a fool to believe the little girl after I fucking. Oh man, I got drawn in. I'm an idiot. I get it. I know. Fucking Matsuo was there from bloody the 7th Division of Claw. It was the guy who had the jar, right? I can't remember what happened to him afterwards. I just remember that Dimple was there and he was the last one out of the jar, right? But I can't remember what happened to Matsuo, like, himself. If he, like, just escaped at some point or what. I can't remember. But yeah, it's interesting how he's there. Whether he got contacted or not, whether he got kicked out of Claw, or if he's there on Claw business, I don't know. But regardless, that's our first look at anything regarding Claw within the season so far. So yeah. And just like in season 1, we've gotten to the point now where it's an arc taking the course of our episodes, which you know it's nice. I do like the sort of the sort of one episode arc things that they do have, but there's something like it allows you to put more, like you put more into it when you have a show like that spans across, like an arc that spans across like multiple episodes, you know. You're able to get more out of it as well, I feel like, you know, which I feel like I'm going to anyway. It may just be a 2-episode arc, but I'm excited to see what happens next episode, especially considering the fact that Megami's now showing it's not even like he's showing Mob this. The way he was explaining it was, I've got to think, like, how is he doing this? So if at this moment he is the stronger spirit within Minori, right, then he is probably able to control Mob, or sort of like Mob's. If he's just showing Mob like something, like maybe fucking with his mind, so to Mob it could almost be like a realistic dream, or like maybe like something like a lucid dream, but instead of being able to do anything he sets his mind to, like he can't, because he's living in a world now where he doesn't have psychic powers. It's going to be interesting to see that, actually, to see like how he would change, if at all, just because of like the difference in sort of perspective. It's also going to be interesting to see whether or not Mob would have his previous like memories of anything. Like, for instance, would he just wake up and all of a sudden not have psychic powers? Is that the case? Or is it he's woken up and he's never had psychic powers and that's what he thinks? I feel like almost the former would be the case, because then because that would be interesting, because then it would be like, well, how would Mob react to not having psychic powers anymore? Where that was his sort of, I mean, that was like his thing. Without that, he's kind of like a very uninteresting sort of character in a way, you know. So it's interesting. It's very fucking interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else. But this show has taken a very, very harsh turn, and yeah, I mean, I feel like there are just characters around that can just die now. they can just die. So that's great. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else to really talk about. I'm just shocked that it got to this point. You know, I mean, I felt it was getting more serious with the subject matter and stuff like that, but it seems like they're putting all the subject matter and stuff and they're heightening everything. You know, talking about the messages, but then the visuals and the stakes are higher. Yeah, I don't know. The interesting thing as well is that this will seemingly not just the change in perspective that Mob has within this little dream that he's got, like dream sequence that he's going through, but also the fact that that'll probably stick with him when he comes back out as well. So yeah, I mean, I feel like there was always a slight change when I was talking about in the pre-discussion as well about how I thought that Mob's percentage rate up to 100% was taking longer, and I thought that maybe there was a reason for that, was because he was probably getting more accustomed, and you know, he has a lot of people around him now that sort of care about him, and so in turn he's able to sort of give out a bit of, you know, emotion. It's not all just piled in. That maybe he was just leading a happier life, and that's what it is. You know, with all this talk of like negative energy, like negative emotions and stuff, allow you to harbor up, you know, a lot more spiritual energy and whatnot. That maybe it was just taking longer because he never had anything really to be stressed about as much than in the first one. But yeah, but I don't know. I mean, the show's getting crazy. I'll just put it that way. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. So thank you everyone for watching. If you do want to see episode 5 right now, then you can do by going over to my Patreon and getting the early access tier, and you can see episode 5 right now. So yeah, and you can also watch the full length as well by getting the full length tier over on my Patreon as well. And there's also other tiers there where you can look at. If you want me to react to a certain show, then you can pay to have that reacted to as well. So just go have a look at that and see if you're interested or whatnot. I've also got a Discord that you can go over and join as well. But yeah, that is all I've got. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.